Welcome to Replenish the Atmosphere of Discovery, where we discover the Master's plan for our lives. So, today is our 100th session. Yes, we have been doing this for 100 sessions, and today's session is on freedom, right? So, all of the other sessions lead up to this. Are you free? I want you to think about that. And I'm not talking about free from heartache or suffering or pain or loss, but liberated from the hold and the oppression of it, right? So freedom means to be delivered from what could be a liability to you mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, or spiritually, right? So mental freedom means to be free from mental burdens like fear, anxiety, overthinking, the limited beliefs and mindsets, internalized narratives and perspectives and delusions that cloud your judgment or self worth. Mental freedom means to be free from all of that, right? It means being free from thoughts and patterns that act as deficits or debts, right? Like self doubt, okay? Lack of self worth, lack of self esteem, or trauma based thinking. It's about thinking clearly and independently. That is mental freedom. Physical freedom. Physical freedom is the ability to live in your body without pain, without restriction, and without manipulation. That's physical freedom. Being free from addiction, being free from health issues, unsafe environments, or even physical obligations that diminish and drain you, right? And it means reclaiming your ability to make your own decisions and govern your body and your body's movements. That is physical freedom. Emotional freedom. That comes from releasing what doesn't belong to you, right? And restoring a value system that is grounded in truth and not trauma. Being free from emotional burdens that are not yours to carry, right? Like guilt, shame, unresolved anger, right? Or inherited emotional trauma, right? These things can be inherited and transferred. It's about letting go of false emotional responsibilities like people pleasing, right? Or emotional codependency, and replacing them with a sense of self built on authenticity and healing, right? All of those things that you're feeling, okay? We want to build that on what is authentic. What are your authentic feelings? Processing those, right? Not adding on those transferred feelings and emotions and that false guilt, okay? Spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom is freedom from spiritual confusion, right? Guilt and spiritual oppression. A clear, connected, and unburdened relationship with your purpose and your faith, right? Your relationship with God should not be burdensome. And most of the time it becomes burdensome because either we don't want to be obedient or someone has placed these restrictions on us that is not what God requires, right? It means letting go of belief that you are expected to accept without thinking for yourself, right? It means getting rid of the spiritual manipulation or anxiety about your existence, right? Those questions of what am I here for? Some people get anxiety about those things, not knowing their purpose. And instead, finding that alignment with who you are created to be, right? And your connection with God. Those are the things that should be nurturing you. Okay. Financial freedom means having control over your finances, right? Without being burdened by debt, by lack, or survival based decisions, right? Being released from the stress and limitations that come from money problems. That's financial freedom. Having the resources and the systems in place, right, to live according to your values without that financial strain. So that is financial freedom. Each type of freedom is about freeing yourself from what limits your well-being and your identity, right? So freedom means that you are not controlled by external factors like opinions, like culture, society, and all of those expectations, right? You are grounded within yourself. You know who you are. You're not limiting yourself in any of those aspects. So freedom is not avoiding or ignoring your thoughts, your feelings, your desires, or behaviors. It is coming out of any form of bondage in a healthy way. And we talked about those ways of escape in session 30, right? So your lack of freedom is restricting your growth by blocking the space that you need to evolve. It blocks those spaces mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, physically, right? When you're not free, you're often stuck in survival mode, right? You're stuck in complacency, right? You're stuck in confusion instead of expanding and learning, right? So I'm going to tell you what it looks like to not evolve and grow in those different areas. So mentally, when you're stuck mentally and you're not free mentally, you can't think for yourself, right? You follow certain beliefs out of fear or habit, right? Not because it is the truth. Okay. Your growth is blocked because your thoughts are shaped by control, not curiosity. Like your mind is literally controlled by other people's expectations, other people's opinions, all of these external factors, right? Emotionally, you don't evolve, right? Because you suppress your emotions to keep peace and avoid rejection. There is a way and a time to speak about what you feel. So we're not suppressing it, but we are making sure that we're not saying what we feel at the wrong time in the wrong way, right? That's on us. Okay. So emotionally, right? You suppress your emotions again to keep the peace or avoid rejection. And you carry emotional burdens that are not yours. And we just talked about that, right? Because they are transferred to you. That's how you don't grow emotionally, because you're not emotionally free. Growth requires emotional honesty, and freedom is what allows you to be honest emotionally, right? When you have that freedom. Spiritually, lack of freedom causes you not to grow spiritually because you're told what to believe, you're told what to feel, right? Or what is right and wrong for your soul without being able to ask questions, right? You just have to go with whatever you are told. But growth requires spiritual autonomy, that space to seek and discover and find God for yourself, right? Because what happens when you're faced with different things in life? You can't go off of what someone else told you. It has to be something that you have discovered for yourself, okay? Not continue to live with someone else's version of him, because what if they're serving a false God, right? And you are not connecting with this form because it's not the real God. It's not the real one who is the King of Kings, right? So, for example, you will feel disconnected from God because you're living under someone else's version of him, right? So, financially, okay, how this looks financially, that keeps you in survival mode. That lack of financial freedom keeps you in survival mode. And you are making choices financially based on fear, not on vision. Okay? You cannot invest in your passions, your healing, or your future if you're stuck in debt and dependence. And how this look is staying at a job, right? That's draining you, or a relationship that's draining you because you cannot afford to leave, right? That's when you are in bondage financially. Physically, your environment, your health, or your body is controlled or unsafe. There is an insecurity there, right? You can't rest, you can't move, you can't live in a way that supports your growth. Growth needs safety, it needs space, it needs drive, right? It needs that enthusiasm in order to happen. An example of this is being constantly stressed, right? It keeps your nervous system in fight or flight mode. So things start happening in your physical body, right? That is a response to that physical lack of growth. So in order to grow, you need the room to try. You need the room to fail, to reflect, to express yourself, to question things. You need the room to change and then expand, right? We see this in nature. We see how it is done. We are no different, right? You cannot put a fish in a small bowl and expect it to grow as big as a well, right? You cannot put a plant in a small jar and expect it to grow as big as a tree. It's going to outgrow that. So we are the same way. We need that room to try. We need that room to fail. We need that room to question things. We need room to change, right? And then expand. So without freedom, you would just keep reacting instead of creating the world that you're supposed to have, right? And you'll just continue surviving instead of evolving into who you were created to be. Okay. So often we allow our thoughts and emotions to hold too much space in our lives, right? And it's robbing us of freedom and opportunities to thrive because we still allow them to direct how we live in this world, right? But you are the one that's building the world that you don't like living in, right? And I'm talking about your inner world, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you move, right? You created this reality for yourself, right? Allowing negativity and the things you don't like, or the things you say you don't like, you're allowing those things to run it. You're allowing those things to direct your life and form your world. And you have the ability to speak what you want, to feel what you want. But you decided to allow your unmanaged feelings and unmanaged thoughts, you decided to allow them to form your world, right? Because you're making decisions based off of what you think and what you feel. I know you don't think you are, but you are, right? So recognize how much freedom is in not living a lie about your feelings, about your thoughts, and about your behaviors that don't line up with who you say you want to be. If you say this is what you want, right, then start thinking that direction. Start feeling in that direction. Start acting in that direction. When you notice a thought or you notice a feeling or you notice a behavior that is not going in that direction, stop it, right? Just stop it. Stop doing the thing that you don't want to do. Stop thinking the thing that you don't want to think. Okay, these are things that are in our control. Even if you start it, the moment you recognize, stop, right? Freedom releases and exempts you from borrowed burdens, right? From that silent suffering that you do in isolation and those invisible ceilings, right? The sky is not the limit, it's a step. A lot of people say the sky is the limit. No, it's not. It's just a step. There are things beyond your sky, right? So someone's sky may be like this, yours may be up here, right? So the sky is not the limit, it is just a step. That way you have room to choose, you have room to create, you have room to become, right? So let's talk about the disguises of bondage, right? The way it can masquerade as peace, freedom, and responsibility while actually keeping you stuck, right? What bondage are you in that you are not recognizing? Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes that bondage is familiar, right? It's something that was transferred, something that was inherited, something that was passed on. Sometimes bondage is even comfortable. Some people have become comfortable with fear, with anxiety, and they're afraid of peace. They're afraid of joy. They're afraid of happiness, and they run from it, right? They're comfortable with chaos and toxicity. Okay, so the disguises of bondage, they often wear the mask of things that look good or feel safe, right? But it keeps you disconnected from the truth, right? From reality. And we learned about delusion versus reality last session. Okay, if you're having problems discovering the truth, right, and living in delusion, living in lies, go back to session 99, delusion versus reality. But that disguise of bondage will keep you living in that delusion. So, number one, the disguises of bondage. No destination. You have no destination. And that's a false sense of freedom, right? You're floating through life with no foundation, no anchor. You're avoiding structure, avoiding commitment out of fear. You're mistaking chaos, stubbornness, or rebellion for autonomy, right? You're being reactive instead of intentional. But the truth is, real freedom has vision. It has a place that is going, it has a destination, right? And it's not the absence of boundaries, It's the presence of intentional choices that direct you. Okay, so not having a destination is a false sense of freedom. It's still bondage, right? Number two, numbness. Numbness, which gives us that false sense of peace because we're numb, right? It's an emotional shutdown. It's suppressing pain instead of processing it, right? Detachment and isolation being your survival response instead of healthy reflection, right? Avoiding conflict in a way that keeps you silent and stuck. But the truth is, real peace comes after going through the storm, right? Not avoiding it. It is not numbness, it's clarity, it's resolutions, right? It's security. So, bondage is numbness that's disguising itself as false peace, right? The third one, guilt, false responsibility. Guilt shows up as false responsibility. People pleasing, right? Hyper independence. Your hyper independence is not freedom, right? It's so that you never have to need anybody again, right? It's pain that has not been processed. But that thick wall that you put up does not just keep people out, it keeps healing out too, right? It keeps freedom out, it keeps peace out, right? Carrying generational or relational trauma, feeling selfish for choosing yourself, right? Confusing obligation with love. But the truth is, real responsibility is rooted in integrity, not guilt, right? You are not responsible for other people's healing, although you can be a part of their healing, right? It's not solely your responsibility. They must take a part in them being healed as well. You're not obligated to someone else's bondage or lack of freedom. If they choose to stay bound, you can take a part in it, but it is not solely your responsibility, right? It's okay to tell them, hey, I can't be a part of your healing right now because it's draining me, right? It's causing me to have some issues now, right? Number 4, perfectionism. This is a bondage that is disguised as self-worth or value, right? It's disguised as excellence, that perfectionism, right? Constant self-correction, fear of failure, fear of imperfection, right? Hustling for validation, right? Trying to get validation in the wrong ways, with the wrong actions. Mistaken achievement for identity, right? Your worth is your worth. It is not earned, right? You don't have to earn what you're worth. Your worth is already what it is. Now, if you allow others to diminish that, that's a choice. If you don't set boundaries, that's a choice, right? Number 5, busyness, right? This is the disguise of bondage because it's false progress. When it's false progress, busyness is bondage in disguise, right? Always doing something. Bondage being disguised as ambition, right? Running from yourself. You stay so busy so you don't have to process those things, right? Thinking that the busier you are, the more you are. So you're attaching that busyness to your identity, right? Mistaken motion for growth. Sometimes you're moving real fast, but you're not growing, right? And also avoiding that inner work, that thing that we need to work on within us. So you're being busy to avoid that, okay? So bondage is not always about being shackled or restricted, right? Sometimes it's about being misled. And these disguises that I just told you about, it makes you think you're free. It makes you think you're at peace. It makes you think that you're responsible when you are actually stuck, right? Abandonment issues also keep you in bondage. There is freedom in accepting the truth that if it's meant to be, it will stay. If it's not, it won't, right? You cannot force love, loyalty, or time with people, okay? Trying to control outcomes that are outside of your power only deepens the pain that you should be releasing, okay? And releasing doesn't mean that you stop caring or you stop feeling. It means you trust the process and you protect your peace. Okay? So peace is the absence of fear and the freedom from the chaos that it breeds, right? You stay shackled to your thoughts, your emotions, your past, and your failures when you don't exercise proper authority over them, right? Whatever you submit to is your Lord. Whatever you submit to is your master, right? So if you are a believer and you say that Christ is your Lord, then you must allow him to make you free, right? And all that takes is acceptance, right? Which is agreeing that we are wrong when he says we are, according to his word, right? Agreeing that we don't know everything and that we need his guidance, we need his protection, even when we need protection from ourselves, right? We don't like how that feels, okay? When you receive the freedom that Christ gives, nothing holds you, not death, not sin, not hell, right? So then when you release the fear of these three, you make decisions in life that are directed by a sense of eternal peace and not fear, right? This means your life stopped revolving around trying to escape death, trying to escape sin and judgment. Instead, you live with the confidence and freedom of someone who is already embraced by eternity, right? That's what that means. So this is a form of emancipation that can never be revoked, right? No matter what happens on this earth, nothing can take you away from your freedom unless you give it permission to do so, right? Your freedom in Christ is permanent, it's unshakable, and it is beyond the reach of any earthly circumstances, right? Which means that no matter how much evil happens in the earth, you do not allow it to make you exchange your freedom for the fear and the hopelessness that it keeps trying to release to you, right? When you find yourself feeling fear and hopelessness, turn off the news, right? Get off of social media and direct your thoughts towards what is the truth, right? What is the reality? When we soak up everything, like every word that somebody else says, we allow ourselves to be chained to their versions of the truth, right? We accept their fears, we accept their anxieties, we accept their hopelessness. But just because there are facts does not make it truth, okay? Facts describe the situation, but it's from the person speaking point of view, right? A medical doctor's facts is very different from a psychiatrist's facts. It's very different from a zookeeper's facts. It's very different from a manager of McDonald's facts. They all can be facts, but their version of it is different, right? Truth defines your foundation. The world may give you data, but only God gives you peace, gives you perspective and purpose from his point of view, right? Point of view is all knowing, all seeing, past, present, and future. And so that is the truth. Facts are temporary, truth is eternal, right? Facts inform us, but the truth will transform us, right? And we need both. We need facts, right? And we need the truth, right? But truth interprets facts through the lens of faith, through the lens of wisdom, and through the lens of a eternal perspective, right? That's the truth. And that's what makes us free. Okay? The truth exposes lies. Lies about who you are, your identity. Lies about what you need, your security. Lies about what you're bound to, right? Sin, fear, lies, falsehood, right? Give yourself the freedom to reject criticism that is false or malicious, right? You don't have to accept everything that is said about you or to you if it is not true. It's just one person's perspective, right? And not just because you feel it's not true, right? So you do have to see if maybe what they're saying has some truth to it, right? Because somebody could have said something in the wrong way, but what they were saying was true, or they could have said it at the wrong time, but what they were saying was true, right? So you do have to assess that, right? When the truth is revealed, it breaks the chains of deception enslaved your mind, your heart, your body, and every other area of your life, right? The truth sets you free by simplifying your life, okay? Truth simplifies your life by cutting through all of that confusion. When you live by truth, your life becomes clearer, right? And you stop feeling pulled in all of these different directions. Truth clarifies what matters and what doesn't matter, right? Things you can easily let go of that you've felt. And I don't know if you should, if you've been listening at least to the last 10 sessions, you should have grown past some of those things that you would keep for months and days and decided like, hey, it's not worth me losing this space in my mind, right? You should have decided what matters and what doesn't, right? That way you stop wasting time, you stop wasting energy on things that don't serve your freedom. I had someone tell me, my husband and I were in counseling, and I think we were probably maybe 3 years in, and someone told us the stuff that matters now is not going to matter at year 10. But in that moment, it really mattered, and it mattered a lot. But now, after 18, 19 years, it's like, yeah, we laugh about the things that we were so concerned about, the things that caused arguments, because they really did not matter. But when you're married and you're early in your marriage, you find that some of the things that you have to change, you buck that change, right? Because you think you're losing yourself when really it's for your own good. You have two people trying to mesh into become one. And so you have to give a little. Some of that stuff you don't need. Some of those points didn't need to be made, right? And so you learn that as you go throughout the years. So truth frees us by revealing reality, right? Not what's on the surface. And that's what exactly what I'm talking about. You can see a thing and you can perceive it to be a way. Why? Because you're looking through the lens of trauma. You're looking through the lens of hurt, right? And so truth reveals what is beneath all of that. Like what is really happening with that? What is reality? Or am I just looking at this through hurt? Am I looking through this through pain, right? Truth simplifies life by cutting out those distractions, cutting out those lies, right? Cutting out that bondage with your perceptions. That's why you have to confront those mindsets. The way that you think is formed by your environment, is formed by your upbringing. All of that was not good. All of that was not beneficial. And it's time for you to tell yourself the truth and say, hey, how mama did it, how sister did it, how aunt did it, how grandmother did it was not right. That's not the life I want to live. So you have to confront and challenge those mindsets that are not beneficial. The truth also empowers you to make wise choices that protect your freedom rather than threaten your freedom. How many of us have made choices that's threatened our freedom? It could have been, fighting, being angry, going off on people, just making these decisions that threatens your freedom. But truth empowers you to make those wise choices that protect your freedom. These are things you have to think about, okay? It also breaks the grip that sin has on you by restoring your soul and restoring your identity. And a lot of issues that we are having right now is with identity. When you know who you are and you're set on that, all of that external stuff does not bother you as much. The things, people's opinions and what they say, when you know who you are, what they say does not matter. And you find that you're able to help them more when whatever they're saying are not getting to you. Then you can get to the bottom of, okay, so what are you dealing with? Like, what issue are you having? Why are you coming at me like that? Why are you so angry? Let's talk about it, right? Once you have freedom in any of those areas, you don't need to entangle yourself again with that yoke of bondage, right? So when you get that freedom in your emotions, let's just say it was a certain emotion that would always get to you. Let's just say it was anger or sadness, right? Once you get free from that, stay away from those things that drag you back into it. Don't even accept it. It takes your agreement to be there, right? Don't be entangled again with that yoke of bondage. When you get free physically, stay free. When you get free financially, don't go back into debt, right? A yoke unites two things to work together as one unit, right? So be careful what you choose to be joined with because it will affect your freedom. Be careful of the friends you choose to have because if they're in bondage in a certain area, birds of a feather, right? Can two walk together? Okay. Be careful what you choose to be joined with. Freedom is inner authority where you are no longer driven by fear, right? Real freedom means you're no longer controlled by external voices, right? There's no trapping your choices. You're not driven by guilt. You're free from that guilt. You release that guilt, right? Fear is not shaping your future. You're not making fear-based decisions, right? You're not stuck in survival mode, right? And you're not attaching yourself to the things that constantly drain you. That is what real freedom means. So you can do whatever you want, right? But I would do the things that keeps me free, right? Remember, when you're working on one particular area, once you get free in that area, stay free, right? And you don't have to get free all at once. You can, but that requires you to fully agree with the master, right? Which a lot of us, we take our time doing that, and we normally won't completely lift up our hands until we have no other choice. But there's a way to be free without situations happening where we don't have any other choice but to say, okay, you can take the wheel, right? We can manage what's happening now before a circumstance or an event happens to us. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. I'm excited that we made it to 100 sessions. I encourage you to go look through the whole list. There's something in there that will help you get through what you need to get through, even if you are seeking counsel, if you're being coached and all that. This is that support, right? It's that support to get you from your next counseling session to your psychiatrist or to your psychologist, right? This is that support that helps you actually do the work that they're telling you to do, but they may not really be explaining to you what this looks like. Like, how do I renew my mind, right? How do I manage these emotions? How do I get rid of these memories that are still traumatizing me, right? So they may tell you what to do, not necessarily tell you how to do that. So go through all of the sessions, like just scroll through and click watch later on the ones that speak to you, and even some of the ones that you might think you don't need, you still can learn something from it, right? Because even as I'm reading my notes, sometimes there's things that I hear right in the moment that is a question that is on your mind, right? And so you can find those gems. You gotta watch with the journal, right? Because there's things that are going to be revealed, that are going to be unlocked in you that maybe you have been suppressing, that you have not dealt with. And that is the root of something outwardly, like the way you make decisions and you didn't even connect it to, right? So my question to you is, are you free, right? And if you're not, you have 100 sessions to get to that point, right? So God bless you all. God's willing, I will see you all next Friday at 3 p.m. See you later.